republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank everybody for coming. We're having trouble. We were supposed to be hooked up to the big screen, but we can't. We're on the computer here. On the computer, you will see Mike Curry. He is the lawyer that we're hiring to look into this becoming a city. So we're going to let Mike take over and do things in that. And when it comes to questions or whatever, and that, we'll try to wing this and see if we can get through this and that. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
You bet. Can I start by asking how many, or who I've got in the room? That I think would be the start.
Right now, you have 4 supervisors and 12 citizens.
Okay, very good. Okay, I've got a long list of your questions. I've highlighted probably maybe a dozen or 15 of them that I'll answer specifically. The rest, I think you'll get answers as I go through this kind of the presentation. So I'll do the presentation first, pick up those questions off the list that I think I'm not going to be answering in the presentation, and then open it up to anything you guys may have.
Okay.
So let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm Mike Corey from Corey and Ruby Law Office in St. Michael. We work with about 350 townships, 13 cities maybe, I don't remember the exact number, and we do exclusively municipal law. I've been doing this for 35 years. I was one of the attorneys who defended Empire Township back in 1993-94 when Farmington came after Empire and Castle Rock. You guys probably have heard of that annexation. The outcome of that was 80 acres got annexed from Empire into Farmington, and that was from a resident who requested. All the other annexations, about 10 square miles, were denied. At that time, I remember telling Empire Township that you guys are going to need to incorporate, start preparing. It took them almost 30 years, but they did. They incorporated in 2021 or 2022, I think 2022. They are one of the 7 townships that I've incorporated over the course of my career. The most recent ones, we just did Northern this last year in 2025. 2024, we did Baldwin Township. 2022 would have been Empire. 2021 would have been Credit River. I think you've heard of those, both Empire and Credit River. And then I've got 3 others going back to 2000. The incorporation process, the only way you incorporate is through a trial. It's a hearing in front of the administrative law judge with what is now the Court of Administrative Hearings out of St. Paul. They have, for the past 2, 3, 4 hearings, had the same judge hear those cases, which was very, very good because we didn't have to re-educate a new judge each time. She's been elevated to be the chief judge. She very, very likely would not hear your case if you guys incorporate. One of the other judges would. We don't know who that would be. So there's a little bit less predictability. We pretty much knew what she considered to be urban or suburban, which is one of the standards for incorporation, and how she would view the evidence, so it made it easier for us to prepare. But in any event, you would, if you file for incorporation, you will need to go to a hearing in front of her. Empires, Credit Rivers, several of the other ones, probably about 4 of the 7 that I've done, have not been opposed. And what that means is you were the only party in the courtroom. There was no other party to cross-examine our witnesses. There was no other witnesses presented except the ones we presented. It's a much, much easier case. And I think that's what yours is probably going to be if you file that. Largely because you have the orderly annexation agreement with Farmington, which says they will not oppose your incorporation. I'm assuming Lakeville wouldn't want to come in there, they touch on your corner, kind of kitty corner
Hampton. Or does Hampton?
Oh, yeah.
And that's Township.
That's still Township, okay. But Empire is,
Yeah.
Oh, Empire, yes.
Yes.
Yes. I can't speak for Empire, we don't represent them. We did during the incorporation. My guess is that they would not be coming out after you. They've got plenty of land to develop. And being a very recent township and having gone through that big annexation fight in 93, 94, I doubt they would really be looking for another one. So I would be approaching this from the idea that as long as you get this case done before 2030, you're going to end up with nobody contesting you, most likely, which is the best situation to be in. So let's talk a little bit about what that process looks like. We started out with a petition for incorporation. It's a resolution passed by the town board. Basically says, hey, here's the reasons we want to incorporate, and we're now filing for incorporation. Typically within 60 days, we're going to have a hearing, especially if it's unopposed. So in order to do that, in order to pass that resolution that says we want to petition, we've pretty much got to have most of the work done by the time that resolution gets passed. And that work is probably going to be on the annexation side, the incorporation side, where we prepare the incorporation case, if you will. That's probably 4 months in advance, maybe 5 months in advance when we start working. You would have a finance expert's report, which would talk about what would the financial impact be from going from a township to a city. You're probably going to have an engineer. Part of and I'll get into why that is in a little bit, but the engineer would probably be talking about potential future sewer and water. Not that you have any now, or will have any, 5 years from now, but how will that develop? And then probably certainly a planner. The planner is the type of planner who's going to be doing your comprehensive plan. They would talk about a number of factors that the court has to look at. Most of these cases are really planning related cases. There is some finance to them, a little bit of engineering. Those 3 people would be the main experts, would be our witnesses. You probably have your town clerk, you'd likely have a town treasurer, one of the town board supervisors, and those would be our witnesses. The trial in both Credit River and Empire, was a 1-day trial, which was pretty, was standard for an unopposed case. Starts at 9 and we're pretty much going to be out of there by 5. Part of that is because no one cross-examines our witnesses, which otherwise would take quite a bit of time. We would prepare everything ahead of time. It would take probably, we would start our experts probably 3 to 4 months before we file on preparing their reports. That's really what takes the longest. As we get closer to the hearing, we prepare the testimony questions, we go through the we meet with the witnesses, we go through those questions, make sure we're asking the right questions, that they understand what they are, and if the answers don't come out the way we want, we adjust the questions until they know what we're asking and what we're looking for, and they're able to basically present the case we want presented. The hearing itself, like I said, is a 1-day hearing. When that ends, we would brief this issue to the court, and a brief is where we write an argument, which is a persuasive document that says, Judge, here's why we should be incorporated. Here's why we meet the standards. I'll talk about those in a minute. In addition to that, we would prepare the findings of fact, which is a very detailed, very lengthy document which the judge is going to modify somewhat, usually not much, and if they are going to rule our way, they're going to issue it. That's typically due to the court maybe 45 days after the case is over. The judge has I believe it's 13 months from when we file that petition to make the decision. If it's unopposed, we're likely going to get a decision still township. Once we have an election, because you'd have to have a city council election to elect your council members. Once those council members are elected and seated, you flip over into a city. It is, yes, a change of name, it's also a change in form of government, but largely, you're gonna continue operating the way you are operating today. There really is not gonna be that much that changes. That election, depending on when you would file, could occur in November of that year. It could occur in about 3 or 4 other months. I believe it's February, maybe March, May, and August. There's dates set out in statute. So it wouldn't be, if the judge's order comes out, it's still going to be several months before you're going to become a city. If the judge denies the order, you would stay just as you are. You'd be a township. You'd be out all the money that you put into this. That decision could be appealed, and if you got incorporated, somebody else could appeal it. The reality of these cases, though, is the way the appellate process is set up. It's very unlikely, generally, that you're going to get a decision overturned. Basically, whatever that administrative law judge decides is probably how it's going to stay. So you really don't get that much of an appeal. You can appeal it, but it's just very unlikely that they overturn it. So basically, you want to win at the first judge level, the administrative judge level, put your best case on, and if it's unopposed, we normally, unopposed, we haven't lost one. I think the only one I've gotten a bite taken out of me out of one of my townships now, city of St. Augusta, St. Cloud took about 8 square miles. They incorporated about 30. It was a bigger, about a 38 square township. And St. Augusta was incorporated 25 years ago, still runs today as a city. So that's the big framework. What we have to show in order to have the judge incorporate us is that we are one of 3 things, and usually we try and show all 3. First is that we are urban or suburban or about to become so. And I'll get into detail on each of these in a moment. The second issue that we have to show is that the township form of government is no longer adequate for Castle Rock Township. We need to be a city. The third one is kind of a catch-all, that incorporation is in the best interest of the area to be incorporated, which is going to be your entire township. When you file for incorporation, you want to bring the entire township in, you don't want to split it. We've got to show the judge that is the case. The biggest of those 3 is urban or suburban or about to become so. By example, I'll give you this. 34 years ago, 33 years ago, when Farmington filed, they were trying to say that Empire, 8 square miles out of Empire, 2 square miles out of Castle Rock, were urban or suburban or about to become so. We defended that case by showing that they were not urban or suburban currently, and they weren't about to become urban or suburban because there wasn't enough growth. There wasn't enough land that was going to be demanded to be turned into houses. There wasn't that much housing demand, and Farmington had plenty of it. That same standard that we use for incorporation is used in the annexation cases. The judge in that case looked at the evidence and said, this is still all farmland, not much is going on, Farmington doesn't have that many houses, the demand for houses, and that was before they really had any growth. They hadn't had much growth prior to that. And what was then the municipal board denied it. Now that function is taken over by the administrative law judge. Normally, in these cases, we have to show that there is demand for housing, that there's growth. That is the part of your case that is the weakest. You don't really have housing growth, and part of that is because of the way the Met Council governs things. The Met Council basically takes the position that you guys have to approve a comprehensive plan. They need to approve your comprehensive plan. That controls your zoning, and they will not let you have 1 acre lots. They won't let you 5-acre lots, which we see in a lot of townships. They're basically saying you're 1 per 40 unless you have sewer. And if we want to call it the catch-22 is, except for a very few townships, and Empire was one of them, that long ago got sewer, they do not let townships get sewer service. And that's one of the reasons you become a city, is so that you can then start to connect into the metro system and develop in a city type density, which is probably 3 to 4 lots per acre. So your lots are probably a 1/4 acre or smaller. That's the main way most of our townships have incorporated. If we were to present your case, we would have to have some version of a plan for how you would develop. And the reality of this is, much like you're seeing in Lakeville, Farmington, everywhere else north of you, as the metro moves south, the demand for, the value of the land increases based on the demand for housing. The more demand for housing there is, the more per acre the farmers are going to get for their land. They're not going to want to split it into 1 per 10s, even if they could. Developers are going to pay them a lot more so they can develop it with sewer, with water, and eventually either Farmington is going to develop Castle Rock Township or you're going to develop it as the city of Castle Rock. The market is simply going to demand it. I hate to say it that way, but that's the reality. As a township, you're not going to be able to stop annexations after 2030 when your current orderly annexation agreement ends. And Farmington will either pick it off property by property, or they might come back with an annexation like they tried back in '93 and annex maybe 2 square miles or 3 or 4 square miles, who knows? And maybe they won't do that at all. It depends on what they're going to do, but they're very likely not going to stop growing. So if we were going to go in for an incorporation, my recommendation would be we look where the future is taking us and we present that case to the court. One of the things that the biggest issue that I think the biggest fact I would say that would demonstrate that you are soon to become urban or suburban would be, and I've pulled the data on this. If you look at what I would call the outer ring suburbs, still in the metro, and in your area we're talking Lakeville, we're talking Empire, which is really now a suburb, Rosemont, Apple Valley, Burnsville. They're a little more, they're outer in the metro, they're inner from your perspective. Those, other than Empire, areas largely all went within maybe a 10-year period. Burnsville was 1964. I'll just give you some, let me just pull this up a second, hang on. I apologize, I should have had this up initially. And I am not seeing it. Hang on, I know where it's at. Let me go grab it this way. Okay, you're there. So if you're looking down in your area, Credit River incorporated 2021, Empire, I believe, 2022. Prior to that, we go back a ways. Inver Grove Heights, 1965. Burnsville, 64. Apple Valley, 69. Lakeville merged with their township next to them in 66. Egan in 72. You've got an 8-year period where we had 5 different townships become cities down in your area. If we look at Hennepin County, in between 54 and 62, again, an 8-year period, we had Eden Prairie, Maple Grove, Medina, Plymouth, Minnetonka, and Bloomington all incorporate. And the point of that is, as the metro grows out, there is demand across the board. It's not just in one city, it's in several cities. And it goes layer by layer. And by layer, I mean, if we go back to really, I think, would be the best case you would present is we know it's coming, we can look at all the other cities that are now cities or townships, we can see what happened to them. We want to, your case would be, we want to incorporate so that we can properly plan this. As a township, you can't have a comprehensive plan that has sewer and water. Met Council won't approve that, they won't give it to you. As a city, you could. The only way you can really plan your township as an urban township, or really as a city, is to become a city. And that's because Met Council won't let you guys approve a comprehensive plan that shows sewer. So I think what we would show the judge is this is a natural progression of events. Farmington is already annexing property from us, they're developing it. We are seeing that it's right on our doorstep. We're the next layer of townships down. We should incorporate both Empire and Credit River are recently incorporated and give the court kind of the context of, yeah, they're one layer up from us. They've just recently incorporated. I think Empire is getting development right now on some gravel mines that have played out. What our case would be is we need to plan this properly so that we can develop it. If the issue comes up, why not have Farmington develop it? Basically annex into Farmington or merge with Farmington. Obviously, as you guys know, their tax rate is much higher than yours, and Farmington's tax rate has been high for 30 years. It's much higher than Empire's 30 years ago, still is. And if you guys incorporate, your tax rate would be much lower. That's in your residents' best interest. That's one of the tests we need to meet. It's in the best interest of your residents to incorporate and basically maintain a low tax rate. So that would be the theory. Now, part of the problem you're going to have at roughly 1,500 people, you guys are by far the smallest township we would have ever incorporated if we are able to incorporate you. When we incorporated St. Augusta back in 2000, I believe there were about 3,300 people. We just incorporated Northern Township, they were 3,800 people. St. Augusta had well-developed plans for sewer and water. Sewer and water was right up against their city, and they ultimately did put sewer and water in. If you look at Northern Township, they have plans for sewer, not water. They have the funding for it, and they will be starting that construction likely in 2027. You're not going to be that far developed. So if we're looking at what are the weaknesses, it would be you really would not be that far along in planning sewer and water. You don't have as much population. The strength of this case would be if we're going to plan this area properly, we need to be a city. Once we're a city, we can then lay out where we want the urban areas to develop, what areas are going to remain 48 acres, and then we can work on putting the infrastructure in. That will take several years, but that's what you do when you're a city. These investments are multi-million-dollar investments, will take quite some time to be able to do it. If you do it right, development pays its way. There is a process by which you can do that. But what I think I'm telling you guys is, if you're going to incorporate, you will become a city, and very likely over time, you will start to develop like your neighbors. You're not going to stop development by incorporating. You're going to be able to develop it the way you guys want to, which is quite an advantage to going to Farmington, but you won't stop it. And that's just a function of where you're at. You're too close to Metro to stop it. So that in a nutshell is kind of how we would approach this. Can I guarantee you you're getting it incorporated? Nope, I could not. Would I put it at a 50-50? Maybe. I think that's, at this point, we haven't developed the case yet. I've got the theories I just discussed with you. If nobody opposes it, and I don't see anybody out there right now who I think would, but you guys would know better, we would have a decent chance at it. If somebody opposes it, it's going to be an uphill battle. One other thing, as I mentioned earlier in that Empire Farmington case, Farmington had to show that the land was urban or suburban about to become so, that in order to annex it. Well, that is the same standard we use to be able to show that we should be incorporated. And the point of that is, in Empire, we were able to defend that case by saying we're not urban or suburban. If you guys file for incorporation, you have to prove that you're urban or suburban. And at the same time, a neighboring city could come in, and in theory it could be Hampton, and say we want to annex a chunk of Castle Rock Township, and we cannot argue we're not urban or suburban. We do that, we lose the incorporation. So you really have to let your shields down. You go into this, you make your best case, and if nobody opposes you, the court can't annex any of the property to somebody else. They have to become a party, and they have to request an annexation. So whether you're going to have anyone oppose you also determines whether you're going to have any land annexed. Nobody opposing, no land gets annexed. Unfortunately, you won't know that until you file. And probably until very close to the day of the hearing. Cost-wise, how do we do this? And I'm going to give you a strictly guess. My gut reaction is you're probably looking at, in attorney's fees, maybe $110,000 would be my guess. It can vary. It could be, maybe $90,000. It could be maybe $130,000, and that's assuming unopposed. Opposed, it'll be more. If it's unopposed, and these are the numbers I don't have, you'll have some engineering costs for putting a report together and testifying, some finance expert costs for putting a report together and testifying, and the planner's report. I don't have the numbers on what those numbers are going to be. I think if we looked at Empire's, I don't know what Empire paid, I may be able to find that out. If we looked at Empire's numbers, that would probably give us some idea. Credit River, same thing. I don't know if we know what those numbers are. I think we don't. But if we were able to figure that out, that would give us a better idea. I think you're going to be looking at probably, my guess is probably another 60,000 there. I don't know that for sure. But you're looking at probably, 170,000 would be my ballpark estimate to incorporate. And again, if it's opposed, it's going to be more than that. If you don't have the cash to incorporate, I don't see how you're going to be able to do it. And then the question is, do you want to wait a year when we file this case and we go to hearing? Once the hearing is over with, the testimony is done, the case is closed, the factual cases, nobody else can come in. So ideally, we want to have the entire case done with a decision from the judge before we get to 2030. But even if we had the hearing over with and already briefed, very unlikely that the judge would open it up if, say, Farmington wanted to come in when your OAA expired. My advice would be get this whole thing done before 2030. I don't know that I would want to have the hearing occur in 2030. I think you'd want it in 2028, ideally, maybe 2029 at the latest, so that you get this whole thing done and decided before Farmington can come out and take a crack at you. Let's talk a little bit about what happens when you incorporate. You end up with, you become a city, obviously. You end up picking up 2 more board members as city council members. You have an appointed clerk instead of an elected clerk. You have an appointed treasurer instead of an elected treasurer. It could be the same person, clerk, treasurer, combined. You would not get gas tax money from the county. There is a fund that they call the Small City Road Aid that you should be eligible for. I don't know how much money you get. I think in Northern's case, it maybe was about 30% more than the county was giving them on tax, gas tax. So it may for that plus a little bit more, not a whole lot more. In theory, you could get LGA, local government aid, only available to cities, not townships. In practice, because you're in the metro area, your incomes are probably too high, you're not gonna get, I would guess, you're not gonna get much LGA if you get any at all. There's another program called MSA, Municipal State Aid Road Money. That's for collector streets, but you have to be a city of 5,000 people to get that. That gets you the big gas tax money. We're looking at, I want to say Baldwin probably got $400 and some thousand, maybe 500,000, somewhere in that range per year in MSA money. They have a population of 7,000, and they have a lot of roads. You're not going to see that for decades, so you would not get that. In terms of expenses, if you became a city, you would pick up prosecution expense. Right now, the county does the prosecution for speeding tickets, DUIs, and other misdemeanors. There's not a lot of those usually, especially with a population of 1,500, unless you have a lot of bars. Now, if the people are coming out of Hampton, driving into your township, after they're visiting the bar, and they get arrested, then your prosecutor would have to handle that. How much that's gonna cost a year? Northern Township estimated about 18,000. Baldwin, which was 5,700 people, I think their number was somewhere around 18 or 20,000. Yours should be less than that. And in some cases, some counties will do that for you by contract. You'll pay the county, but they're cheaper than a private attorney like ourselves. So that would be the additional expense. You'd have a few more board members, 2 more board members, prosecutions. That's probably the main expense. Revenue-wise, you're gonna probably get a little bit more gas tax money than you're currently getting. Otherwise, there are no other expenses that you must incur, with the possible exception of being audited. If you guys aren't currently being audited, as a city, you may have to be. And I don't know if there is a limitation on, or a threshold in terms of either money or population you have to cross to be audited. I know that almost all of our cities are audited. So you may get audited too. That could run, hard to say, I mean, that could easily be $12,000 for an audit. I don't know if you guys have been audited before. If you have, you'd have a better idea what that number is. And if you need to be audited as a city, it would likely be an annual audit. So that would be every year. When we did our incorporation up in Northern Township, the city of Bemidji opposed us, big ugly trial, 8 days. And a big part of their case was, as a city, you have to provide more services and you have to raise your taxes. And we were able to show, no, we don't. And one of the easier ways to show that was, you look at the city of St. Augusta, it used to be St. Augusta Township, and this year their tax rate is higher. They raised it significantly because they're doing a number of road projects. But for many years, including as close as 2 years ago, they were at the same rate, right about 20% that they were as a township. And that was 24 years after they incorporated. So no, you do not have to end up providing more services. You do not have to raise your taxes necessarily. It really depends on what services you provide to your people. Just making you a city doesn't mean you're going to provide more services. You will have some additional expenses, like we talked about, which may raise your tax rate a little, but not a whole lot. So yes, if your city council is frugal like townships are, you're probably not going to see a significant tax increase. What it does do, if you were to succeed, well, let me back up. You would still have the cost of incorporation. That you're going to end up taxing your people for. So you may have a short-term increase because you have to pay the cost of incorporation. That would not be because you are now a city. And you would end up having to keep that tax increase year after year after year. Over time, because they spent down their reserves, they built their reserves back up, lowered their rate back down again. You guys would probably do the same thing. I think that's most of the presentation I've got. Let me get to some of the questions. I've got answered some of them. Timeline, schedule. You know, from beginning to end, when you guys say, yeah, we want to incorporate, to when we're done spending all the money and just waiting for the judge's decision, that's probably realistically an 8-month process. In your case, it might be delayed a little bit because of your comprehensive plan. I am guessing your comp plan is not going to change much. I thought that was due in 2008. We would probably, if we had your incorporation hearing in 2007, or excuse me, in 2028, if we had the incorporation hearing in 2027, we probably would present a draft of your comprehensive plan. We would rely on your one from 2018, and then present the draft and say, this is where we're at so far, this is probably what it looks like, and then I believe we would have an additional one that would not be a fully developed comprehensive plan. It would be a sketched out, here's where we believe we would have housing growth eventually. This part of the township, probably your northern part, it'd probably be, you know, side the main roads, probably Highway 3. Your sewer line would be most likely extended down Highway 3. That would ultimately serve it. How all that would happen, how it would be paid for, we wouldn't have details on, but we would have a sketched out plan to be able to show we're anticipating that growth at some point in the future once we're a city. Here's where we think it would be. Here's roughly how we would do it. Basically, you're going to want to show the judge we're planning for it. That's one of the reasons we need to incorporate, so we can take these plans and over time make them, turn them into reality. So if we don't have to delay, if the comprehensive plan process doesn't delay us, I am guessing probably 8 months from when you guys say go to when we turn in our brief would be about right. Probably about the 6-month mark, we'd have a hearing, we'd probably pass that resolution, which is the incorporation petition at about month 4. So we worked for 4 months to get things pretty close to done, not quite. Pass our resolution in month 4. Hearing probably gets held in month 5 or 6. By month 8, we've turned in our briefs, and we're now waiting on the judge's decision. We probably end up with that decision 3 months later. Maybe that whole process is going to take a year from when you say go to when we get a decision. All during that time, you would have ongoing expenses as you go through that incorporation process. Once we're done with the briefs, there really isn't much else unless you get incorporated. Then you've got to have a special election. There's a number of ordinances you'll have to pass. We would help you through all that. That's relatively minor, but it's some additional work. Your second question, are there any other ways to protect Castle Rock from annexation other than incorporation? Simple answer is no. If you look at the population of Minnesota, I'm guessing 3/5 of it, 4/5 of it is in the cities. 1/5 of it is in the townships. The legislature reflects that. The cities are much more powerful politically than the townships are when it comes to lobbying, and the annexation laws favor the cities. They're not going to get reversed and come out in favor of the township. There simply have not been the votes over the past 30 years to be able to do that. So no, there's no other way. Is there any grants or monies available to help with the corporation? The answer is no. There's nothing from the League of Minnesota Cities. Township Association doesn't want to really see you guys become a city because you no longer pay them dues, you don't pay their insurance. It makes their organization a tad bit weaker, so they're not really going to be able to help you either. Would it help the judge or the case if the township people would sign a petition basically saying we want to become a city? And that answer is absolutely yes. We've done that in several of the more recent cases. I want to say they had 1,200 people sign a petition in Northern Township. It was, out of their 3,800, it was quite a feat to get it done. Does it make a big difference? I can't say it wins the case for you, or, I can't say we couldn't win without it, but it helps reassure the judge that he or she is making the right decision if they're going to incorporate it, because they know that there is a good level of support out in the community. And on that, I need to say, and I think I've said this when I was there in last August, your people need to be united behind this. If you have a split population, it makes for a harder case for the judge to be able to incorporate you. You could still be incorporated, but it just gives the judge a little more pause. You want your people united. Part of this process is you would meet with your people, hold a public hearing, and we would explain to them why you are incorporating, what incorporation means, what changes, what won't change, etc. We'll answer all their questions. There's plenty of examples. Empire is a very close one to you that you can look at. But for the most part, our townships that incorporate really do not change much. They pretty much stay what they are. Credit River is probably the outlier on that. They had a city administrator that wanted to make all kinds of changes, and ultimately that cost her job. The city council looked at it and said, that's not why we incorporated. We liked what we were, we want to stay that way, and they largely have. They're the only one we've had that kind of went a little heavy on the city side. Everyone else continues to operate the way they were. Another question, can we get back some land in the annexation agreement that Farmington is annexed? Absolutely not. There is no way you can unilaterally do that. You would have to, if you were to incorporate as a city, land could be detached and annexed into you. Odds of that happening are very slim. There's about one detachment annexation a decade in the state. They're relatively rare, not something that I would think you're ever going to see. What would change for Castle Rock if it became a city? I think I covered most of that. The most important point I want to get at is, other than getting 2 new council members, if your town board gets reelected, most of the time they do, not always, and they set the tone for how the city is going to run, and they run it the same way the township was run, you're really not going to see much change. It's going to be the same place, other than people will now know they're in a city. They're going to vote in the same place. Your tax levy is going to be very similar. Like you say, it might be bumped up the year before and the year after to pay for the cost of the corporation. Conceivably, then it would go back down unless you decided you were going to spend more money on more services. Probably not likely. So realistically, what's going to change? You're going to do your own prosecutions. You may get audited. Other than that, not much else is going to change. It basically can stay the same, except you're going to have a 5-person board. How will Castle Rock becoming a city affect your tax base? It won't affect your tax base. It may help preserve it in the long run, because it's very difficult, as I said, for one city to detach land from another city and annex it into theirs. So Farmington would have, it's possible, but they would have a much harder time annexing Castle Rock Township property and your tax base and bringing it into the city. And that can only be done property by property. It's got to be a petition of the property owners. They're not going to be able to come out and take 2 miles out of your city. So it does preserve your tax base, doesn't change your tax base otherwise. Could Farmington annex all of Castle Rock Township? In theory, right now they could. Well, excuse me, in 2030 they could. They could petition for an annexation of the entire township, and it could be annexed. It's unlikely under the current situation with our administrative law judges that they would do that. There was a time 20 years ago where they were annexing big swaths of land. They've gotten away from that as they've kind of, 26 years ago, they got this whole statutory scheme dumped on their lap. We used to have the municipal board, legislature sunset them, sent it over to Office of Administrative Hearings, now Court of Administrative Hearings. They didn't know what to do with it. They struggled for the first 5 or 7 years, and And then after that, they kind of settled into a groove, and since then, we have not seen a big annexation. That's not to say we can't see one, but the judges, the way they interpret the law, which we think is the correct way, makes it much harder for a city to do that. So I really don't think you're going to see that happen. People are worried about how much it will cost to provide services. What is the average cost of a new city starting out? Again, whatever your current tax rate is, your city tax rate is going to be pretty darn close to that. Part of the hearing would be, we'd have a tax analysis done by the financial consultant. They would look at your budgeting, they'd look at what projects you've got coming up, and they would ultimately project what your tax rates are going to be. They're usually not far off, and usually they don't go up much at all. They're typically where your tax rate is currently. If you were to get state aids, it would actually go down, but you're not going to get much in state aids. Is our existing township form of government adequate to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of Castle Rock Township? This I can absolutely guarantee you. If you file for incorporation, we are going to present evidence that it's not. Our job would be to convince the judge that it's not. That's one of the factors that gets you incorporated. But that's something you as a town board have to decide. Do you want to stay a township? Is that form of government work for you? Or are you looking at it and thinking, this is going to be a problem because Farmington's going to annex our land, they're going to develop it in a way that we think is going to be harmful to our area. We don't want that. In that case, township form of government is not adequate because you get annexed, and you guys would do a better job developing the land if it stayed in the township. What would Castle Rock's primary revenue sources be for a new Minnesota city? Same ones you have now. The only difference is you're going to lose your gas tax money, you're going to gain small cities money. Probably, like I said, a little bit of an increase, not much, pretty much the same as what you're getting. So it really would be the same, no real change. Projected costs for criminal prosecution, I think I covered that we were looking at about 18,000 up in Baldwin. I think if you checked with Empire, that would give you a really good idea what that number's going to be. They're very close to you guys. They're a little more population, double your population, but they'd be able to give you a much better idea. It has been stated that if we became a city, we would be required to establish a certain number of parks. How much park area would be required? The answer is none. I don't know where that came from, but it's not in the law. You are not required to establish parks. You can if you want, but that's your choice. How long will the process take from start to finish? Again, I said about a year from beginning to end. When we come onto the case, when you guys say we want to do this, it's about a year. Northern probably was just about a year, maybe 11 months in Northern, 10 months in Northern. No, take that back. It was probably closer to 9 months in Northern. That was a little quicker case. The Township of Forest Lake filed to become a city. The end result was Township of Forest Lake no longer exists. How do we know this will not happen to Castle Rock? Good question. The answer is you don't know whether it will happen to Castle Rock. You will know early on whether it could happen. By early on, meaning after you file, if you assume you do, does any city file to annex you? If no city files to annex you, or any part of you, then the judge doesn't have the authority to annex property from your township to another city. The judge can deny the incorporation. That's as far as the judge could go. In Forest Lake, I was involved in that case. I was the second chair, meaning I was assisting. I wasn't doing the lead on that. That was one of the best incorporation cases we've had. Northern's was better. Baldwin's was better. But up to that, for probably 20 years, Forest Lake Township's case was the best. They had a much lower tax rate. They had a higher bond rating than the city did. They had more money than the city did. I believe they had more tax base than the city did. They had an industrial park. They had an airport. They were just in better shape all the way around, and they got annexed. We were very, very surprised. We were stunned, actually, because city prove their case. I can't substantiate this. I heard about 10 years later. I did not realize this at the time. Governor Arnie Carlson, the governor at that time, had a Louisiana lake house on Forest Lake in the township. And I had heard that he let it be known he wanted to be annexed. Whether that had anything to do with it, I don't know. But I will tell you that the governor appoints the chief administrative law judge. And this was one of the first cases that the administrative law judges handled. And the judge that did it, in my opinion, he just got it wrong. The evidence was very much in favor of the township. So can we guarantee that you wouldn't be annexed? No. If nobody files an annexation petition, no city does, I can then guarantee you won't be annexed. But I can't predict whether Lakeville's going to come across that diamond, across the corner, and try to annex. That'd be rare. We've never seen that before. Or whether Hampton would. I don't know that Hampton's big enough to put up a fight. I mean, these fights are expensive. I should know the number. I think the administrative law judge, you have to pay the administrative law judge. The statute says the parties have to pay. And I should add that to your cost. When we give you a cost of, 110 for us, and maybe 60,000 for the consultants, you're going to have another 10 to 15,000 administrative law judge costs. If we ended up with Hampton fighting you guys, they would have to pay half the administrative law judge's cost, and it would certainly be more than 15,000 because that would be a contested case. So again, I doubt anyone else would come in and try to annex you, but is it possible? Yes. What will the legal fees be? I've already talked about those. Will the attorney accept a partial payment to complete the process and full payment upon successful completion? We would not do that. When you have a case that you can take on a contingency, meaning if we win, we get paid, we charge we don't, but law firms charge much higher fees. They typically will take a third to sometimes 50% of an accident case recovery as their fee. And in part they do that because there's no guarantee they're going to win it. So they've got to make it work, and to make it work, they've got to make sure that they charge a high enough fee to cover the cases they lose. We do this on a straight hourly basis. We would not guarantee it. We couldn't do that, and we wouldn't take it on a contingency. So the reality of it is, and this really is part of your case also, if you're going to be able to incorporate, you're going to have to show the judge you have financial resources, one, to incorporate, and two, to operate as a city. And if you don't have that money now, my advice would be talk to your electors and make sure they want to do this, and make sure that they'll agree to vote the levy to do it. If they don't vote the levy to do it, you're not going to make it. It's going to be a requirement. And that is all of I think most of the other questions I've answered, or realistically the answer to a number of them that I didn't answer is no. Anything of importance I've covered. Some of the other ones, like are there grants from the League of Minnesota Cities? No, those kind of questions. With that, I'd open it up to any other questions, comments, anything any of the board members have. And if the board wants to hear from the public, I would entertain those questions too.
I'm going to start, Mike. Where does Castle Rock touch Lakeville? I do not believe we touch Lakeville at all.
I thought it was corner to corner.
No, because that would be held by, Eureka Township is west of us and Farmington is north and west of us.
Okay, so when I'm looking at Denmark Avenue,
Yeah?
is that still Farmington west of Denmark Avenue?
Well, they just annexed 200 acres right there west of the church.
225th.
220.
220th is Highway 50. No, that is right, you're right. I stepped up, yeah, 220th and Denmark.
220th and Denmark, okay. Did they annex it from your township? They couldn't have.
No, from Eureka.
Okay, so where is, if I go up into Farmington, I go north of 50th.
North of 50 would be Empire. And
Well, east of Highway 3,
west of.
north of 50 or north of 74.
The
sorry.
divider is Denmark between Castle Rock and Empire.
And then Lakeville's on the west of that.
Yeah, and Lakeville is west of Eureka.
Okay, so that's what I'm wondering is, I thought Lakeville came over to Farmington. Farmington must go farther west
They
than I'm
do.
thinking.
On the north side.
And the south side is still Eureka, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still Eureka on the south side.
Oh, you know what, guys, yeah. So they annexed, back in 1970, they annexed the land where that creek, where Vermilion River is. Where 220th and Vermilion River, where that crossing is, everything north of that is Farmington. That's not Lakeville, you're right.
Right.
Lakeville's farther west.
Right. So Lakeville has nothing to do with us.
So Lakeville's out. So the only two cities that touch you are Farmington, they can't annex you. That, your orderly annexation agreement is enforceable. The administrative law judge will not allow Farmington to annex land from you, well, that agreement says they can't.
And
So
the,
that, really,
The city of Hampton
the
does.
city of Hampton does not touch us, Hampton Township
Township
does.
does.
And Hampton Township basically is.
Yeah.
Not the city of Hampton is 2 miles away from
How
our
is that?
township.
So the city of Hampton doesn't touch us neither.
Okay.
It's a township of Hampton that does.
yeah, they can't, they wouldn't, they, obviously they can't annex you.
Right now, the only city that touches us is Farmington
Eureka.
and Eureka. I mean,
Empire.
Empire.
And Empire, yes. And let's assume Empire is not, I would be stunned if they were at all interested in annexing. That would just be a shocker.
Right.
I mean, if you look at what they're doing, they are putting in place, or planning to put in place a water tower up near 3 and 170th, somewhere in that area.
Right. They're
That's
talking,
where
they're
that's
talking
where their
like
growth
4,000 or 5,000 homes still.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I say, aren't they talking about a big major development in homes right in that area too?
Probably, I know they have 80 acres that they've been working with a developer, with a landowner and a developer. It was not fully mined out. That's probably going to develop in the next 2 or 3 years. And then they got another 80 after that. And then they are anticipating over time, as the sand and gravel gets mined, they're going to have more up in that area. So they're extending a sewer line north, and they're gonna be extending a water line north and building a tower up there. When that happens, I don't know, but I know that's in their plans.
I have spoke to Charlie, our city administrator, and he says their intentions are to work towards the north, not towards the south.
Correct, that's my understanding also, and that's why I'd be shocked if they came down south. Because that would have them extending utilities north and south at the same time, and that's very unlikely.
Okay.
Mike, would it help you at all? Hi, everybody, by the way, my name is Mark Allsites. I'm an associate of Mike Corey from Corey and Ruby. I'm just on the call today, kind of following along. Mike, I do have a pretty good map that shows townships versus cities compared, so if you need me to share that at any point, just let me know.
Thanks, Mark. I've got the GIS on my screen, and I know roughly where your guys' borders are, so I think I'm okay with that. I just thought Lakeville was closer. But they're not.
Yeah, I'll save this for you because it's much clearer than what GIS was.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So the only city we need to really worry about is Farmington.
Yeah, they can't touch.
And right now, you don't have to worry about them. You just have to worry about if you're going to incorporate, you want to get that done before the calendar turns 2030.
Right. Right. I'm gonna open it up to the rest of the board first, if they got questions. And then if we got questions here from the audience, how's that work for you?
That works fine for me.
Okay. Anybody?
I don't really so much as have a question as a statement. I don't know if anybody in this room knows where Lebanon Township was. It's now the city of Apple Valley. The township is entirely gone.
What was the name of that township?
Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Yep, Lebanon Cemetery on the corner of 42 and
Yeah.
Pilot Knob, that is what's left of Lebanon Township.
When did that disappear?
71?
Right around there, yeah.
Somewhere in that range.
1969.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
That was a full township gone in a heartbeat.
I'm gonna come back with a question, Mike. You actually believe we could incorporate, and our taxes being, the city of Castle Rock, we could keep them lower than where Farmington's taxes are as of today?
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
That said, you're gonna have a bump up for the incorporation expenses, but once those are paid, there is no reason that you guys would have to raise taxes if you're still providing the same services. Becoming a city only comes with that auditing expense and that prosecution expense. That, I thought you would bump up a little bit. I don't know what your levy currently is. And I don't know what those costs are gonna be. Maybe together they're gonna be, who knows, let's say they're 25,000, and yeah, that might be a permanent $25,000 increase. I don't know what that does to your levy, what percent. But otherwise, all the other costs, there is no, you're gonna have a little more expense because you have 2 more council members, rather than the 3 town board, you got 5 city council. Do you have a full-time employee right now, part-time?
Right now, we're looking for a new clerk, we have a new treasurer, but we do have 5 board members at this time.
Oh, okay, so you're not gonna see a difference there.
So we're not
You can
right.
You can run a city on a part-time, you don't have to staff it 5 days a week. It can be run on a part-time basis. I don't know if you currently staff your town hall with a clerk that has office hours.
Right now, we're usually open from 8:30 to 2:30, 3 days a week. Sometimes the treasurer or the clerk, whoever works a little bit otherwise, but mainly it's just 3 days a week at the moment.
Yeah, okay, you can continue that. No reason that, there's nothing in the incorporation side that requires you to change it.
Okay. Brian or Jared?
Okay, Mike, I got a question for you. So this year at our annual meeting, and when we did our budget, we chopped our budget to next to nothing. We took everything out of the budget and took it to the, and we were still $140,000 short in paying our bills. Just the basic bills, nothing fancy, no projects, no Farmington lawsuit, none of that figured into there. Just to pay the basic bills, we were $140,000 short. We needed to raise the taxes 46% just to stay even, just a break-even point. And then the residents only gave us a 30% increase, which is still pretty generous. So in other words, this year, like previous years, we're gonna have to be robbing money out of our savings just to pay the basic bills. And yet this year, all that stuff that we took out of the budget, now we're having to do it anyways, so therefore we're really gonna blow the budget out of proportion this year. I mean, we're gonna have to, we just cashed out a $180,000 CD to kind of keep the bills floating along. When a financial person looks at that, how are we going to convince them that, we can't pay our bills now, but if we become a city, we should be able to pay the bills then? How are you gonna argue that point?
That's a very good question. I'm gonna be very frank with you. What the financial person, so let me back up and tell you this. The way I run up my cases is I always tell my witnesses, I don't want you guys to try and paper over this. The judge is gonna see through it, but we're gonna deal with the truth. Whatever the truth is, we're gonna present it, and we can modify things to make things better. And we're better off doing it than trying to cover it up. So I'm gonna tell you, your financial person's gonna come and say, your taxes are gonna have to increase. And they're gonna project it as increasing. Because there's no way in the world they're gonna try and pull the wool over the judge's eyes. That's the fastest way to lose your case.
We know that for a fact, that our taxes are gonna go up. But if we do not incorporate and Farmington takes it over, we know the taxes are gonna go up there too, so where's the difference?
I would agree, and in fact, I give you one other argument, guys, and this is what I would present to the judge. Part of this, of the case, if you remember, there's three standards: urban or suburban, about to become so, best interest of the properties in Castle Rock Township, and township form of government is no longer adequate to serve the interests of the community. And I would argue that if your people at your annual meeting are cutting your budget below what is needed, your township form of government is no longer adequate. And that's one of the differences when you become a city. There is no annual meeting in March as a city, that's a township only thing. And the residents in the city do not vote the levy, the city council does. And we've presented this issue time and time again. Usually it occurs when a township gets too complicated, too many people, they have to start, they've got a lot of roads, they've got to put in place a capital improvement plan, they have to levy for that capital improvement plan. Those capital improvement plans oftentimes look 5 and 10 years ahead. So in 2026, you're levying money that you're planning on spending in 2033. Well, you got to know that money's going to be there. And because you don't know who's going to show up for your township annual meeting, you don't know whether your capital improvement plan is going to be funded, especially over the course of many years. That's why we argue when we become too, call it urbanized, in your case, too close to the metro, your roads are the first thing that start getting a lot of traffic, they need a lot of money, the residents may not want to vote it, and you can't adequately maintain those roads to what you need to do because they're not voting it. But if you had a city council, the residents don't vote, the council does. And our point to the court, which has been very well received, is that when you're looking at a capital improvement plan and a full budget for a township or a city, it's something that the town board or the city council is going to spend hours on. When you get to that annual meeting, your people get a 15-minute presentation and they vote it. And there's no way you can digest a capital improvement plan over a 10-year period in 15 minutes, much less all the other operations that the township's doing. And that has made a lot of sense to the court. And one of the reasons we've been so successful in incorporating our townships is that we're able to show, look, Judge, we want to do good planning. We want to do good financial planning, we want to do good land use planning. The best way to do that is as a city where our borders are stable, we don't have to worry about big chunks of us getting annexed, our tax base is stable. So when we put something on our capital improvement plan 10 years, over a 10-year period, we know we're going to have revenue to cover it because those properties are still going to be here. And the courts have rewarded us really very favorably. They look at that and say, yes, this all makes sense. This is good government. So what you guys are experiencing, I think would help the case, not hurt it.
And I think too, Mike, just to add on to that a little bit, is the idea of becoming more suburban in character, raising expenses and costs, it all kind of fits into one bigger narrative, I'd say. Costs are going up. We're not operating like a town anymore. Our electors aren't authorizing it. That goes to that first and third factor that you were talking about.
Yeah. And we do see it, I hate to tell you what you guys are already experiencing, but as you get closer to the metro, your township stays where it's at, the metro is getting closer to you, more and more population, you're going to see it first in the roads. And I'm betting that's where you're seeing your expenses.
Well, the construction has it out there.
Yeah, and like the construction and stuff in that we have coming to this community, they're not helping these roads at all.
Correct.
And another question I have is, we just had a CD that was finished in a bank, and we transferred it from one bank to another, and I just delivered the paperwork. And when I did so, I talked to the president of the bank where we went with, and he said he's helping a couple of cities where he's borrowing money because, well, they have money in the bank, but he says he's borrowing money for less, a percentage or a percentage and a quarter for sure, less than what they're getting on their CDs.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know with interest rates, well, it depends. So here's why that is possible to happen. Any bond that you guys issue, when you go to the bank to borrow, you're issuing them a bond. That bond is tax exempt. And if it's tax exempt, the bank doesn't have to pay income tax on it, so they can give you a lower rate. Now, I have not seen it recently where you earn more money in the bank than what you're paying on the bond. There was a time in the 1980s, early 1990s when that was the case. You made money by bonding, but it's been upside down, it's been the other way for a number of years. There might be an isolated case or two, but I don't think that's gonna be very common even right now.
Well, he spoke to me, he says, right now, we put in, like I say, we put in, some money to the bank. We're getting 4% interest on the CD. He says he could borrow off for 3% because he's doing it for the city of New Trier at the same time.
Yeah, okay. 4% CD would be good, and then if you would do it at 3, both of those are good rates. To get 4% is good, and to get 3% for a small city like New Trier, that's a very low rate.
Yeah, so I mean, I know there are other things out there we can do, so I mean, it's, there are other options, I do believe, yes.
So debt-wise, you can do that, but your debt, of course, is gonna have to be paid back, and it's paid back through the levy. So it will show in your levy where you're gonna be levying that money to ultimately pay back that debt.
Right. Any other questions from the board here? Okay.
One other quick question. So, you know, I mean, I look out, we've only had 12 people show up for this meeting tonight. As I travel through the township, especially when you go down to the southern half of the township and you talk to residents, I mean, they have absolutely no interest in becoming a city because it has really no impact. You know, the people on the northern, right next to Farmington, of course, and I'm one of them, we feel it. So therefore, you know, we're more concerned about the annexation and stuff like that. The people I talk to on the south end of the town, they want nothing to do with becoming a city. So, you know, if we're a divided community on that, how do you feel that's going to work out in court?
Well, first of all, Mike, I'm gonna disagree with Jerry. I mean, I'm on the southern part of the township, and I had a neighbor in my place yesterday, and I've talked to how many others. There's more of them that are in favor of it than disagreeing with it. So I'm gonna disagree with Jerry's statement there completely.
I know, are any of them here tonight?
No, they're not.
Okay.
So I'm saying we're not getting very good turnout on this issue, so, okay?
Yeah, let me give you my best answer to that I can. If your community is significantly divided, you're never gonna have 100% go in one direction. But if you've got a vocal enough opposition and they show up, there will be, as part of this hearing, we have the court case part, which I call the daytime hearing, and then we have a nighttime hearing, which is for the public to be able to come and tell the judge what they think. And that's not testimony per se, it's just the public coming up to the microphone and telling the judge, I'm in favor, I'm not, or I have these concerns, or whatever. If the judge hears a very divided community, it will make it significantly harder to incorporate. The only one that I've had that was that way was Forest Lake. That was the one part about our case in Forest Lake which wasn't good. Everything else came out great. The public was split right about 50-50. And that one's the one where ultimately we lost. Was that a factor? I think it was. Is it determinative? Maybe not. But if you guys have a lot of people who are very vocal, it will hurt the case. If you have a few, that's normal, that's what's expected. We had them in every one of our annexations. We have had certain landowners who were against it, and they come out and they talk about it, but it has not been a significant number of people. So, you know, part of what you guys need to do when you're debating this and do we want to incorporate is, are our people with us, or can we bring our people along? If we take Northern Township, if we take Baldwin Township, and I don't know Northern because I wasn't in the beginning of it, that they had some meetings that I wasn't there for. So I'm not sure exactly what they did. Baldwin, because they knew Princeton was going to oppose them, which City of Princeton did. They did not, they wanted the element of surprise, which worked out well. They did not hold a public hearing until after they sent out a notice. We have to send a notice to all of the townships and cities abutting you 30 days before you file your petition saying we intend to incorporate. It basically gives them 30 days notice. Aldwin didn't hold a public hearing until after they sent that 30-day notice out. And they got criticized from their people for not doing it. But that board thought it was necessary, and I think it was the right thing to do, because if we did it, it would have given Princeton more time, and nobody wanted to be annexed to Princeton. So your situation is different. You don't have, Farmington can't annex you. You might be able to hold that public hearing first and gauge what your people think before you make that decision. Most of our townships don't have that ability. At least it hurts their case if they do. In your situation, it wouldn't really hurt you, because nobody's going to come after you from the looks of things. Even if you telegraphed it ahead of time, hey, we're thinking about incorporating public, what do you think about it? You can have that discussion and let that inform your decision as a board.
Well,
I think too, just to chime in my 2 cents real quick, kind of looking around, exactly the history that Mike was describing here, this spread of cities, you all being the literal next ring. I think part of that conversation with your public too is not a question of if, but when you're going to become a city and whether you want to control the terms of it or not. Right now is the opportune time, as you all are aware, Mike explained, given you're not going to have any annexation coming from Farmington before 2030. After that, you're in a much more precarious situation, because even if you want to incorporate yourself, Farmington can take a chunk. And that creep is just inevitably going to happen. So in having conversations with the public, I think that that's something to consider too. As to, is it maybe the most opportune time? Probably not, but it's a when. It's not an if, it's a when, and do we want to control the terms?
okay. I see it this way. It's pretty much do or die. I mean, if we don't incorporate, win or lose, after 2030, Farmington's going to take how much of it? We're going to be living according to their rules. I mean, if we can be successful and do this, yeah, like I say, our taxes are going to go up. If we go into the city of Farmington, our taxes are definitely going to go way up. I mean, if the citizens are told that no matter what, taxes are going to go up either way, and if they know in the future we can hold them down lower than Farmington's, I think they'll look at this in a good way. Did I lose Mike? Because he's calling me. See on the screen?
Yeah, it does look like Mike just fell off the call.
So we lost you, right? Okay.
Technology's great.
Okay.
I love technology, I really do. It's so perfect. Until AI comes in.
Hey, Brian, be ready, we're gonna do code or whatever.
We might be getting a quote from Mike.
What do you call it?
Yeah, withdraw the
What's it gonna come in?
Is this your laptop?
Yeah, that's. Yeah, what's the road gonna come in on that?
I'd imagine.
Can you, can hear me and can't?
Right now it's the
Okay, you can hear me.
Yes, so you all are still on, we've lost Mike.
We just lost Mike.
We just lost Mike, yeah, everybody else is here except you.
Well, good, we can see, I can see you and I can hear you.
Yeah, we're still in the road, let's see if we can get Mike back on the phone here.
So can the audience members ask Chris questions and that thing, or? Okay, so do you guys have questions?
My feeling is, I think we need to put out a public deal to the whole township and give them the option of what we have. So we need to have a consensus on how many people are in favor and how many aren't.
And how do you want to do that?
I don't know, you haven't seen this because this was just handed out to us. It was a very detailed outline from last September
We have one citizen that said,
of
we need to contact people.
what the money's actually on
and how to do it.
We're almost, we're.
How do
this
we
is
go about
something
that?
I think
And
residents
get in touch with
need to see.
everybody
You
and
have
let
to
them know.
put a mailing out to every person in the township, put a mailer out there and say, hey, this is-
Want to look at my copy, Jim?
I didn't receive anything, you know.
Right, no, this was just
I mean,
handed.
I kind of think what Jerry said is a valid people might be on, but I think people think, oh, when we become city, the taxes are gonna go. As I said, it doesn't have to change.
Okay.
I mean, I think people think there's gonna be this huge change, and that's why they're against it. But if you say, there doesn't have to be any change, the change is if we don't become a city.
Right,
That's
right.
what's gonna drive the change. If we become a city, we can, if we don't want to grow fast, we can slow walk, we can go
Okay,
slow.
I'm gonna extend this back to the audience,
in
okay?
Dakota County.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, my point is.
Your question, Jim, I asked him how do we go about what he is recommending that we would send out a mailer to every resident in the township, tell them we're gonna have a meeting in that, and if we fill the place or whatever, but that's the best way. He said, you can advertise it in the paper and that, but he says, no one looks at papers no more anymore. He says, send out a mailer to every resident, and that's your best way of finding out.
That's my feeling is you gotta contact everybody, then you know they have it, you know? And technology, myself, I don't get on the computer to look on the website, I really don't. So,
Any other questions? I'm trying to work here with this.
yeah, I think we really need to be responsive citizens.
Basically, in doing some research, I noted, he said the state gives us some money from Woods County, but also WSB, the planner, will help you get grants for things like sewer, water, right? As far as from what I've read.
We have one resident that says that through the planner and that, there's maybe like, through where?
WSB says on the
WSB and
website.
stuff and that there might be some grants and stuff and that available, do you know?
So I'm back on.
Okay, there we go.
Yep, okay, all right. So there's no grants available for incorporation. There may be grants available for infrastructure, but you guys are a long way from doing any sewer or water infrastructure. You're many, many years. There are some grants available for roads, not many, they are very hard to get. I wouldn't really count on getting grants for roads. So I think in reality, unless you guys had a project that you needed, that needed to be done, and a good example is, I'm gonna go back to Northern Township, 300 homes that have septic systems that are around a lake with a high water table. Many of those septics are bad. They got a $6 million federal grant for that. It's an environmental issue, it's a demonstrable need, you can show it. You guys aren't gonna have anything like that. I really don't think you're gonna get much to speak of in grants. I wouldn't count on it.
Mike, are you talking about the city of Now Then or Northern?
Northern, it's Northern Township up near Bemidji.
Okay,
And what they're doing is they're gonna sewer over probably a 5-year period, they're gonna sewer 300 homes maybe that are around Lake Bemidji.
okay.
And they ended up getting federal money for it. The city of Bemidji was astounded that they got it. The city thought they never would. Township they've got some very good people running that township. They worked their politicians well. They got the grant. And that's the exception, not the rule. You're not gonna see that happen often.
Other questions? No?
Yeah, I have a question, a general question, and that has to do with, according to Mr. Curry, it sounded like the upfront costs would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000. How would that impact the average homeowner to cover those costs of incorporation? Because you said it'd be a slight bump to cover the 200 grand, and then it would go back to where hopefully it is today or thereabouts. But what would the impact be per homeowner?
So did you get that question, Mike?
I did. So, if we had a ultimately we would have a finance person testify. Part of what they would put together would show the increase on a house, say an average house, maybe your houses are $380,000, $400,000, I don't know what the number is, but they'd be able to calculate that number, it's calculable, and they could show year by year, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and then project into the future what those taxes are going to be. I can't give you that number without knowing what your total levy is, how much your tax base is, your tax capacity, and so let's say that 200,000 is the number. If you did that all in 1 year, it would probably be a significant bump. I don't know what your levy currently is. Do you guys levy 800,000?
No, what is it?
Was it?
What was it, 5?
Yeah, I was gonna say high fours, 5.
I want to say, I think we're right around 500,000.
Okay. So if you did it in 1 year, that would bump you up 40%. That'd be significant.
Yeah.
That's a big bump.
But does it have to be in 1 year?
If the idea was to incorporate 2028, I gotta think about how this would work, or even in 2029, if you did it in 2029, you'd be able to do that over 2 years.
Okay.
And I might be able to answer your question. So, last year we were $140,000 short. We needed a 46% increase in the levy to break even, to make up that $140,000. So if we had to make up $200,000, you're probably looking at closer to 60-some% increase.
Possibly, but if you've already increased it 30%,
The 30% didn't get us back in balance. We're still money short. The 30%, yeah, when we needed 46% to break even, and the residents gave us a 30% bump, but then we've spent more money this year than is in the budget, so this year we're gonna go negative even worse than we thought. But that's just reality.
What's hurting us right now is this lawsuit with the city of Farmington.
But our budget had nothing to do with
I
that.
know, it's the lawsuit, and we're getting hit hard from the city of Farmington on our fire protection and stuff in that too. That's where our main problems are right at the moment.
Fire protection was normally 75,000, this year they added 100,000 to it, so it's 175,000. Next year they will bump it up more, just for the fire contract.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have no control over that.
No, we have no control.
No, you don't.
Farmington's just gonna push it.
Wow.
I just want to kind of mention that when you say 46%, it's not 46% of my total property taxes.
No,
that I
no,
pay.
township.
I think
Your township,
I think you
yes.
need to make that clear to people.
Correct, of your township
It's
taxes.
not, 46% of $3,000, it's 46% of
500, correct, 500.
Yeah.
That's important.
But again, the residents wouldn't give us the 46%.
But I think the residents, if things are put in proper perspective or whatever, if more people think, yeah, we don't want City of Farmington to control us, okay, we will pass that levy through.
Okay.
Well, and it wouldn't have to be permanent, that's what he said. You're bumping it up for that.
So Mike, when you're talking about this, you're talking about raising the taxes at this rate for like a year or two, and then we're back to normal, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Well, once you're done with the incorporation, you're gonna have that, let's call it that $25,000 number, whatever that is for prosecution and for, what was the second thing there? Prosecution and auditing. If you had to be audited, which I suspect you will be, maybe you're gonna have 25, maybe it's gonna be 30. That's gonna be permanent.
We're going through a basic audit right now with the township.
By a CPA firm?
Yes,
What are they charging you for, do you know?
right around $5,000.
Oh, that's,
Like I say, this isn't a detailed one.
Yeah.
okay, because that's unbelievably cheap. That's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they specified to us in bold print, this is not an audit. They're just doing a kind of a review.
okay,
The audit, they gave us a quote on an audit of $15,000.
that makes sense. That's what I would expect. Okay.
But it's not like we're going in, you know, that we're not looking into things at all, you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I say it's not like we're not doing anything, you know, we're looking, what we did is we hired a new treasurer and everything and that. We wanted to make sure everything was on the up and up for them and stuff and that. So we hired this accountant to look into things and make sure everything was, you know, there was nothing out there disturbing or whatever, you know?
Yeah, got it. Okay. So you would, I mean, if they quoted you 15, you know, let's assume your prosecution's gonna be 15. Again, Empire's number is gonna be higher than you guys because they have twice the population. But let's assume it's 15. That would mean you pay roughly $30,000 more every year, because you're not gonna get audited every year as a township. You might be spending $5,000 for review now. But generally then you'd have a $30,000 permanent bump, permanent increase in your levy. Maybe you're gonna get more in small city road aid that would offset that a little bit. I don't know. I wouldn't count on it, but I don't know.
Unfortunately, it's like everything else, it's gonna go up. There's nothing you can do to back it up.
So our next step is if we decide to move forward with this, or we're not sure we're gonna do, what do we contact the citizens first here by letter, or what's your recommendation?
Yeah, so I would suggest typically what we've done in the past and other ones, and sometimes this is after they made the decision, occasionally it's before, and then Empire might have been one that was before, I think it was. What we end up doing is you'd hold a public hearing, you know, you basically tell everyone we're gonna meet, town board's gonna meet to discuss the possibility of incorporating. You'd have us come down and we basically would do an abbreviated version of what we did tonight. You know, I wanted to inform the town board as much as I could. For the people, we're gonna talk more about what's the impact gonna be on them and less about the trial. It's really gonna be what changes for the public, how does it change your form of government, et cetera. Your annual meeting goes away, your vote on the levy goes away, what's it mean for taxes, et cetera. And then they start asking questions, and between the board and myself, we answer them as best we can. Some of them we're not gonna be able to answer. But we just want to get as much information in their hands as possible so that they can tell you what they're thinking.
And I do think a critical part of that conversation, Mike, would be addressing the OAA, because a lot of the public might not be aware of that circumstance, right? And putting that into context of, if we were just talking about the number of how much a levy would go, you hear 46%, it sounds super scary, but then, you know, I heard numbers thrown around the back, oh, like $500 or $250. Okay, so for $250, would you care to have your say over how your city operates, or would you rather get annexed into Farmington? Right, I mean, there's context in everything.
And that, I don't know the numbers, but my guess is that if you get annexed into Farmington, they probably pay $250 extra every year.
Exactly.
So, I was fire chief, this Jim Hyman, fire chief from Randolph-Hampton. I believe when I was fire chief, we took 6 sections from Farmington into Randolph-Hampton Fire District. I think we are still stuck, even if we are a city, how we could control Farmington's fire protection, I have no idea. But as you see, that's probably a third of our budget is fire protection to Farmington.
That's our main expense.
Really, realistically, yeah. So I don't know how we can alleviate that as a city, but
They were talking about a private fire department? Jerry was supposed to be researching that.
The cost is just gonna be astronomical.
For us to put, for Randolph to come in and put another hall up, you're talking $1 million just for
Right.
that. I mean,
So
just for
so that comes to the next question. So where are we gonna find $1 million? Anybody got $1 million they wanna give us to build a fire hall?
That-
And then,
that's-
and then the other thing is, I'm sure you're familiar with, like the guy Randolph said, if you build it, that's at least your problems. Now you gotta find 15 bodies to man it.
Correct.
And
It's
in this
more
day and age,
personnel.
he said, nobody's volunteering to be firefighters. So then if you have to go to full-time firefighters, you got another $1 million to hire firefighters?
Yeah, like I said, that's, I just look at that bill, I don't realize it was gonna be raised up again, I know it went up huge this year, but, and to me, that's, for the amount of calls that they make into this township, it's ridiculous, I mean, that's,
What can we do?
I don't know what you can do.
And it's cheaper to pay Farmington.
When you got Hampton charging us $40,000 to cover almost half the township, and then Farmington charges us $160 to cover the other half. You're right.
Is that a lawyer question? Township lawyer question?
Put it this way, we've already thought about talking to Farmington, they don't even want to talk to us.
Right.
You know, right now, you know as well as I do, right now, we're not in good terms with Farmington because of this lawsuit.
A little bit that we talked to Andrew.
They will never discuss the fire contract. Dave Nicolai used to, when he was on the board, said they're set in their ways, and he said, I can talk till I'm blue in the face, and they're not gonna change anything.
So let's ask Mike, are you still there?
I am.
So is there any recourse for the township on the exorbitant cost that Farmington is placing on the residents just for fire protection?
Practically speaking, not much. We've had 5 townships that formed their own fire department. This is out in the Richmond Cold Spring area. And they were able to do it much cheaper. They did it with used equipment. They did this 15 years ago before building costs got crazy. And they have a lot of population that they, in the township, that they can draw from. They've had a very successful fire department. They're the only ones that we have had who has created a new fire department. Everybody else is subject to the city, and even our townships that have negotiated deals with other cities, like when you were talking about maybe going to Randolph and seeing if they can serve something, they might initially negotiate it, but when it gets to the fire chiefs, the Farmington fire chief is going to say to the Randolph fire chief, don't step on my territory. And we've seen several fire chiefs honor that, and then in this case, the Randolph, if that were the one, fire chief would say, we're not gonna do that. So we've had cities that have told our townships, yep, we'll take over that territory. Then they get tied into the fire chief that's losing them, and they change their mind. They don't want to step on each other's territory. So really, unless you start your own fire department, or went in with some other, you and Empire, had a joint fire department, that's the only way you're gonna be able to do it. And the only way you can really make it work is using used equipment. The new equipment is so crazy expensive, you just cannot do it.
But the state doesn't have any way of saying, like Farmington, can you actually justify more than doubling the price a year? You know what I'm saying? Like, almost like a gouging statute. Like, I think Farmington's using it as a weapon against us. You know what I'm saying?
But they're doing the same thing, Eureka, they're doing the same thing. So we can't go and argue that we're being charged unfairly when Eureka is getting charged the same rate, Empire's getting charged the same rate. And, we talked to Andrew about this.
Okay, well, I didn't know that.
And basically, he said Farmington always has the option to just say, we're not interested in providing you with fire protection anymore. And there's nothing we can do about that. They're not required to provide us with fire protection.
Correct, that's exactly right.
So I mean, if we get tough with them, they could just say, well, then, you guys just go it on your own. And then what do we do?
And the real problem is the farther away your fire service is from your residents, the more their insurance goes up. And you're gonna have people that have their insurance go up $250 a year. That's the problem with just saying, hey, we'll let Randolph do all of it.
Actually, my residence is closer to Randolph, and my insurance was go down, but we're in the Farmington area, Randolph will take us. They can't they can't take it anymore. The last big fire we had here was several years ago at Christmas time. And at that time, Farmington called in Northfield and Randolph fire departments, Lakeville, I think, too, for that one. That was the Retzicle, yeah, and Rosemont.
It's a mutual aid agreement the fire departments have within that area. Everybody mutual aid, whoever connects to each other. So that's a mutual aid agreement.
So I can tell you right now, the property, Castle Rock's property taxes on my piece of property, my own homestead, is $485.52. And my value for next year, or for this year, was $562,000. So that gives you some idea what, even if they double it, it's $1,000.
Yeah, that's still not
Right,
as much as probably what Farmington will charge.
right.
And I mean, it's all on your website, I can't lie to you.
Yeah, it's on the website.
That's what she said, and I think she's right. You gotta specify more about not the percentage, because people
Correct.
Yes.
think the percentage is applied to their whole
Of the whole bill.
property tax.
Yeah, school levy and everything else.
46% sounds enormous, but when you put it in dollars, it's not as much.
Yeah, so.
Doesn't sound as bad.
That happens at every annual meeting. I feel like the conversation always starts in the percentage, and somebody stands up and says, guys, would you do this for $200? You know, and I think that that's just a good way to characterize it.
Okay.
And this year at our annual meeting, we actually went very in-depth into that, explaining it, that, you know, the average, I was one that did it. We showed different properties, how much their taxes would go up, and the average house was anywhere from $150 to $300 a year. And like I said, I agree with you, it didn't seem like much, but guess what? The residents didn't bite. They were like, no, we're not giving you the money to pay the bills. So that's where we ended up. You know, we needed 46% and we got 30. So the residents, you know, may not be that happy about spending money. You're right, this is a different scenario, but we still gotta find out if the residents are okay with that.
And that's
Absolutely, and I think that it's a situation though to where, you know, it's a little bit of apples to oranges to the annual meeting, because here, the context is comparing this to a world in which Farmington annexes you and your prices are higher into perpetuity, whereas you know, sprung to short-term costs for the cost of incorporation, and then it settles back down like Mike was describing.
And that would be the difference between a city and the township. The board would decide, and the residents wouldn't be able to come in and say, you know, I don't want that. But again, it may take some of that misconception of how much they're actually being charged out of the picture.
The other thing we also have to consider is that there is always that possibility, if we do incorporate and become a city, Farmington could just say to us, you know what, if you're a city, do your own fire protection, we don't need to provide you with fire protection anymore. Then what is our game plan?
Then we go to Randolph or Northfield or someplace else. And
Who's
check.
already all told us there's not a chance that they will do it.
If we have.
I mean, there's always a chance, but they said it doesn't have to change anything.
Okay.
Just becoming a city doesn't mean you have to do all this other stuff.
No, you're right, we don't have to, but we have to be prepared for it.
So I can tell you that I have, you know, in my 35 years doing this, I have not seen a city pull back and basically say, we're cutting you loose. I've seen Winona threaten it to what was then Winona Township, but they didn't. And in none of our incorporations was that a problem. When they incorporated, the fire contracts stayed the same, they were unaffected. Doesn't mean it's always gonna be that way, but we've never had that happen yet.
Why would they consider pulling the plug on you, considering what they're charging us?
Right.
It's charging you like $100,000 a fire.
All the other, them plus the other entities, Eureka, Empire, et cetera, have to make up that difference.
I mean, if the city of Farmington would do that, now they're gonna charge that to their own residents and make the difference? Not likely to happen, don't you agree?
They're not gonna back out because they're making so much money in the township,
Exactly.
period, you know?
Right.
Not gonna say out of you.
Such a
They're
vastly
making it, yeah.
disproportionate amount they're charging us per house, it's not even funny.
Okay. No other questions or anything then? I guess we're good, Mike.
Okay, very good. Thank you for having me, and hope I was able to give you as much information as you were looking for. And if you got anything that you come up with, any questions come up that you All right?
We'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
guys. Yeah, in the meantime, we'll just sit tight until you guys tell us when and if you're gonna go forward with this, or whether you want more information or what you want to do. But at this point, we're just gonna put it on ice on our end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If there's nothing else,
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Unless somebody else has a question.
motion been made and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.